Derby County are looking to bounce back from defeat as they head to the Hawthorns on Monday afternoon. And it's going to be a crazy test for Derby County. It's going to be one of the most important games of the season, which I feel like I've said for every single game over the course of the last few months. And that's because Derby County really need to stay in the Championship this season. With talks of investment and all other things that could come our way, staying in the Championship is the best way to make sure that happens. Now, obviously, if we look at the league table for both Derby County and West Brom, you'll see that West Bromwich Albion are in 8th position right now. 43 games played, 14 wins, 18 draws and 11 losses. 51 goals scored, 41 goals conceded with a plus 10 goal difference. 60 points on the board, but their recent form has not been the greatest with 4 losses and 1 win. Now, obviously, we have to scroll right the way down to the bottom end of the table to see where Derby County are, but just to finish off on West Brom, there's 6 points between themselves and the playoff positions. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my Derby County content heading your way across the course of the end of this season and then heading into the postseason. There's going to be lots of talk about transfers, management, and everything that goes with potential relegation or staying in the division. So if you want to stay tuned for all of that, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, hit the like button as well to stay tuned for all the content, and let me know your thoughts on this video down in the comments. They really need to win all 3 games if they want to be in with a chance of getting into that final playoff position and having a chance at the Premier League. But ultimately, we'll have to wait and see if they can get that done. Now, for Derby County, they find themselves currently 21st place, 43 games played, 11 wins, 10 draws and 22 defeats. 44 goals scored, 55 goals conceded, 43 points on the board for them. Their final 5 has been okay for a relegation team, but ultimately not great, with 1 win, 2 draws and 2 defeats. They've gone from obviously 3 points clear of Luton Town to now being level on points with the relegation zone, and that's obviously a problem that Derby County face. Now, obviously, you will see on the league table that Derby County do have an incredible goal difference against anybody below them. So all they really need to do is match up with those teams below and finish on equal points, and they'll be more than happy to come away from this season in 21st place, staying up on goal difference. If any of you do remember my predictions video, I said if Derby County stay up by a goal, like, I'd be happy. We just need to stay up, and that is the conversation that we're still having. Now, there is an opportunity this weekend, well, this Monday, for the likes of Hull City, the likes of Oxford, the likes of Pompey, all to sort of pull themselves away from those sort of relegation places. And in my opinion, I've said it for a while. I said it when there was 10 games to go, that the likes of Oxford, Pompey were all about safe. There was still obviously a chance that they could drop into those places, but they're now sitting on 48 points, 5 points clear with 3 games to go. It would ultimately mean they have to lose all 3 games, and all the teams below have to essentially win all the games for them to sort of fall into that relegation zone. And obviously, for Oxford United, they face up against Cardiff City, which is going to be a massive game, with obviously the likes of Luton Town facing Bristol City and Plymouth facing Coventry, and obviously Derby County, as we're talking about in this video, facing up against West Brom. Now, if we take a little bit more of a look into West Brom and the teams around them, Millwall face up against Norwich, Blackburn Rovers face up against Sunderland, Swansea City up against QPR. They're the only teams that can sort of overtake them in the division. It would obviously require sort of a big goal swing, but that is a possibility. Middlesbrough face up against Sheffield Wednesday, a team who West Brom could go ahead with a 1-0 win if Middlesbrough were to lose. Coventry and Bristol face up against Luton Town and Plymouth Argyle. So it's going to be very unlikely, really, that you're going to see them sort of close into each other. Now, if we go on to the home form, which is sort of where Derby County are going to be sort of anxiously looking at this and knowing that West Brom are quite good at home. They sit 8th in the division, 10 wins, 8 draws and 3 defeats, 38 points on the board for them with a plus 13 goal difference. Now, for Derby County, their home form's been decent, 31 points for them, 22 games, 9 wins, 4 draws, 9 defeats. But it's the away form where Derby County are really going to be worried. 23rd in the division, 12 points from 21 games, 2 wins, 6 draws and 13 defeats. Conceded 37 goals, scoring just 19. Now, we know that Derby County beat West Brom in the return fixture at Pride Park, but ultimately that doesn't matter. We're heading to the Hawthorns, but the one positive that Derby County can have is they're currently in better form than West Bromwich Albion. 5 points from a possible 15. West Brom have only picked up 3 from a possible 15. Both teams languishing in the bottom end of the division for the form over the course of the last 5 games, and obviously that is disappointing to look at. But then when we get into the XG tables and things like that, West Brom are a place lower than they should be, collecting 5 less points, scoring 3 less goals. Derby County are 4 places lower than they should be, collecting 12 less points, conceding 6 more goals, which is obviously disappointing for both sides, that they ultimately haven't performed to the level that they should have done. They haven't picked up the points they should have done, but ultimately it's another game where both of these sides need to do their job. Now, just a quick final look at the head-to-heads of both sides. It's 6 wins for Derby, 2 draws apiece, and 2 wins for West Bromwich Albion. Derby County winning the last 3 games, and Derby County are unbeaten since July 2020 versus West Bromwich Albion, with a 0-0 draw back in 2021, 1-0 win in the December of that year, a 1-0 win in the EFL Cup when we were in League One, and a 2-1 victory back in December. But who's going to come out on top in this one is anybody's guess. Now, if we take a look at those injuries that we see, you've obviously got for Derby County additions to that injury list of Jakub Zetterstrom and Nathaniel Mendez-Lang, both fracturing their cheekbones across the course of the last 10 days, which ultimately rules them out for the rest of the season. You've then obviously got the likes of Ryan Niambi, David Ozo, Dejan Brown, Curtis Nelson, all out for the season, and I think everyone's sort of anticipating now that Callum Elder won't kick a ball again for Derby County this season. But then you've got the likes of Corey Blackett-Taylor, who's now back in the team. He was warming up with the squad on on Friday afternoon, which was good to see, and hopefully he's back involved on Monday. You've then got Kmar Roof, who Eustace is hopeful that he can be involved in the final couple, but ultimately probably won't be. And then obviously the likes of Lars Jorgen Selverson, etc., still out for the season. So it's going to be an interesting test for Derby County to see how they set up. I made a video yesterday talking about why Eustace has to take some fault for the result that we've picked up. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact of taking Liam Thompson out of the midfield, which we'll get into a little bit later on. Now, for West Brom, the injuries and suspensions isn't half as bad as it is for Derby County. Josh Maja and Sami Ajayi both missing out with injuries, probably going to miss the rest of the season. But Jason Malumbi and Callum Styles both set to miss out with suspensions, which obviously isn't great for the West Brom outfit. Now, obviously, there will be a more in-depth video about Derby County's injury situation once we have the full press out, but we'll discuss that either later on today or maybe tomorrow morning before the game actually gets going, because it's going to be interesting to see how that one does obviously progress. Now, if we talk about the recent form of the two sides, both sides sort of struggling a little bit. West Brom have won 1 in their previous 5, losing to Coventry, Bristol City, Sunderland and Norwich. Their only victory coming up against Watford, and ultimately that's why they fell out of that race for the playoffs, really. Obviously losing Carlos Corberán, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in this division, it's going to have an impact on you, and ultimately the manager they have in charge now just isn't quite to the same standard, Tony Mowbray. Like, you can give Tony Mowbray his flowers, and I think Mowbray is a good manager. He's done a lot of good work across his career as a manager, but ultimately he's not quite Carlos Corberán, and I think that showed in the fact that what Carlos Corberán has gone on to do at Valencia. Now, for Derby County, John Eustace took them on an incredible run of form. I think it was 5 games in a row without defeat, maybe 4 games. It was either 5 or 4 games, 4 of them wins, but ultimately they haven't won now in 4 games. Defeat to Swansea, defeat to Luton Town, and 2 draws versus Pompey and Burnley ultimately mean they've sort of found themselves sort of slipped back into that relegation pack, when ultimately if they'd have won at Pompey, which was possible, and picked up a point yesterday, they would find themselves right now 5 points clear, which is very, very disappointing to talk about as Derby County fans. Obviously, as you know, the losses came against Luton Town and Swansea, draws versus Pompey and Burnley. The last win came 4 games ago against Preston North End. And I said a couple of days ago that I felt that Derby County coming out of this international break weren't the same team. And ultimately, I still think that is the case. I think, obviously, the changes that we had to make heading into Swansea with putting in Caden Jackson, ultimately one of the reasons we didn't get anything out of that game. You then go on to the Burnley game where we looked so much better, but still didn't get anything more than a point. You then look at Portsmouth, you take Liam Thompson out the side, you bring in Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, and ultimately it just doesn't work. And then obviously we had the same problems up against Luton Town. Now, for West Brom, who are the players we really need to watch out for? Obviously, you look at the likes of Alex Mowat, you look at the likes of Carlon Grant, you look at Tom Fallows, really, really good players. Michael Johnson as well, who are really, really good players and can really have an impact for West Brom this season. Now, obviously, the highest rated, Alex Mowat, Alex Palmer, and then Josh Maja. But obviously, we haven't got to worry about Josh Maja. But if we look at their most recent game versus Coventry City, it's not really been a great set of fixtures for them. And the only person who really seems to come out with any sort of positivity is their centre-back, Hegum from Norway. But it's one of those where we'll have to see how things shake up for them, because they're obviously going to see this as an opportunity to get their playoff push back on track and potentially get themselves back into at least within a game where if someone slips up because of their goal difference, they could potentially find themselves in it. But ultimately, we know that's going to be a tough task for West Brom, and that's the problem that they're currently facing, is they face up against Derby, Cardiff and Luton. Now, if they win all three, they could be the reason Derby County survive. Well, if Derby County win and then they win the other two, they could be the reason Derby County survive. So it's a massive, massive opportunity for Derby this. So obviously, let me know your score predictions down in the comments. Let me know your team predictions. Let me know what you think John Eustace and Derby County should do heading into this one. It's going to be a very, very interesting test for Derby. We have a decent record against West Brom, but ultimately away from home, we aren't the greatest, as we've seen across the course of this season. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments if you have not done so already, and I'll catch you in my next video.